Hi, how y'all doing? My name's Tyler. I'm the Vice President of the Winthrop College Republicans.
And I'm Leslie. I'm the Secretary of Affairs here. And today we have Mr. Ralph Norman. Mr. Ralph Norman represents District 46, 48 in the House of Representatives. He is one of the few strong conservatives left in the House, fiscal conservative and a social conservative. And we're glad to have him with us here today. Thank you, Mr. Norman. And the first question is, what initially made you decide to run?
Well, first of all, Tyler and Leslie, thank you for what you're doing. Y'all are educating yourself, you're getting involved, and we need good young people that are willing to do what you're doing. Put your tithe, your time, and your talent, and that's what you're doing. No, I'm a businessman. I'm a developer by trade. Went to Presbyterian College, graduated, went to work with my family's business, which was primarily construction. In the construction industry, you meet a lot of different people. You go to a lot of chamber events. You deal with the cities, the counties, a lot of regulations. Mm-hmm. And the older I've got, I realize that I can make a real difference if I get in the political system to affect change, mm-hmm. Positive change with people. I felt like my background in the business world was an asset. I've made money, I've lost money. I've been on the good side of regulations, I've been on the bad side of regulations. So I initially said, I'd like to see how this works, and really it wasn't fair for me to criticize a politician for what he's doing unless I was down there seeing what he did. Mm-hmm. So that's why I initially got involved. I feel good people ought to get involved in our political system because it affects every man, woman, and child at all levels. So put my name on the line and ran for office, and the rest is history.
So what issues are most important to you going into your seat in the House?
Well, I'm a fiscal conservative, like Leslie said. I feel like that in South Carolina, our taxpayers' dollars ought to be viewed like our own dollars. We have family budgets. We have business budgets, and that you have to live by. Thankfully, in South Carolina, we've got to have a balanced budget. If we didn't, you see us running deficits just like the United States Congress runs deficits. So what's real important to me is to give the taxpayers, for every dollar we spend, make sure we give $1.50 in services. Mm-hmm. And it's a challenge, but it's one that I welcome every year. I'm glad to have input, mm-hmm. and I think the tax money ought to be spent just like the personal dollars that we spend.
Well, we definitely thank you for being a fiscal conservative, because when I look at the national government, I see all the deficit spending. And being a young person, when I'm getting older, I'm like, we're the ones that are going to have to bear the brunt of that with mm-hmm. their constant, going into further and further debt. So I'm glad our state government doesn't act like that as bad.
Well, and, so many of them don't consider it their money. They mm-hmm. think it's other people's money.
Right.
And this thing called government, it's us. Mm-hmm. You define government, it's us, it's people. Yeah. And we just have to get the people in office who spend dollars wisely. They evaluate the money and the services before you spend it, and they look on it like it's their own. Mm-hmm.
So going into this new legislative session that will start in January, what are your main goals for this year?
Well, infrastructure. Being a businessman, I can't attract too many industries to South Carolina. Mm-hmm. Until you have good infrastructure, roads, water, sewer. And we've lagged behind. We put other things in front of that. I think that it's on the priority now of all the legislators. Now the next question is how you going to pay for it. And I was against the borrowing the $2 billion last year. I thought that there are other ways to do it. As an example, we have $3 billion in tax deductions. As a business, as a contractor, I get a tax deduction for a porta pot. The newsprint industry gets a tax exemption on newsprint. That's $3 billion. We need $1.5 billion for our roads. Start taking the tax deductions off. And the issue you have, everybody wants to save money until it affects their particular, the saying, whose ox is gored. When they come out of the woodworking, Columbia, when it affects their particular industry. And, but we've got to have the stamina and the willpower to make some hard decisions. So, you know, you keep hearing about the gas tax. You know, I've never seen a tax that ever comes down. It always goes up. And before I commit to that, I want to make sure the money is going to be spent wisely. And to be honest with you, you've got a few senators and some House members who are controlling where the money goes. And as long as it's equally distributed, I can make a strong case that York County ought to get a pro rata share of tax dollars for roads and for road maintenance. And a lot of times that just hasn't been the case. So we need reform of DOT. I think the governor ought to appoint the commissioners. We put that up last year and it really didn't go anywhere. But infrastructure's got to be at the top of the list. The pension reform has got to be at the top of the list. You're gonna hear a lot of dialogue on the pension reform in this state because the workers, I think we've got 568,000 workers who are being required to take more and more of a cut in what they take home. One of the big issues, we've guaranteed a 7.5% return on those pension dollars. I don't know of too many people making 7.5%. If you go to a bank to put $100 in, you're gonna get maybe two, maybe 2.5. To guaranteeing a 7.5% is not feasible, nor is it sustainable long term.
Right, right.
Those are pension reform, infrastructure. We've got some bills that I put up last year. The drunk driving bill is on a local, well, it's a statewide bill, but it affects York County as well as all the other 45 counties because it's the bill that people, if they don't get all the camera doesn't get all the footage, the drunk driving charge gets taken off. That's not right. So we'll be putting that up. Funding for colleges is a big deal now. Is a big expense. Education takes 48% of our dollars. So that's going to have to be evaluated to see what we can sustain long term. This is the beginning of a 2-year session. Anything that doesn't pass after the first year gets carried over to the second year, whereas last year everything that didn't pass got.
It's really comforting to hear that you turned down that $2 billion because you really see a lot of politicians, Republicans in general, who say they're against federal intervention in the states. They say the 10th Amendment. But then when you put there's money involved, you see these people cave, and it's good to know that you didn't. When you look at the urban sprawl of Charlotte and its continuous growth, and you look at since 2000, Lake Wiley has increased nearly tripled in population, and Tega Cay has nearly doubled. What have you been doing to address the kind of sprawl that you have been seeing from Charlotte, and that the rest of the county and the rest of these northern states in South Carolina can do?
We're fortunate that we've got growth. I mean, I can take you to a lot of areas in the state that just they would die for the growth that we've had. We've had a 1% growth for as long as I can remember. My district was basically in 2015. I had grown. Our district was District 48. You're allowed 32 to 35,000 residents. I was over 100. So it's growth that I'm excited about, but you have to have control growth.
Right.
And the infrastructure, our roads have not kept up. Now, fortunately, we've got the basics. We've got water, we got sewer, we got the utilities. We have everything in place, except the road situation. We've got to have a lot stronger maintenance than we've had in the past. But I think it's smart growth. You know, housing has always been contentious. People say, well, housing takes all the services, and we want commercial growth. Well, it's a chicken and the egg. You're not gonna have shopping centers, which pays a higher rate than the 6% on the house. But you have to have the people to go to the shopping center.
Yeah.
So how many malls do you see stuck out in the middle of nowhere? It's in a densely populated area. So quality growth is important to me. I've encouraged the city councils not to put moratoriums on, but to raise the standard of the housing, which I think will stand the test of time. And the reason is I want to see projects that are built go up in value the next 5 years rather than depreciate in value. That's how you have a sustainable tax base. And that's what I've encouraged since I've been in office.
We'll move on to more like a personal segment of this interview. What is something about you that not many people would know?
Probably they would not know I had 15 grandchildren.
Oh, wow.
We've got a prolific family. I can almost win an election with my family. We got 4 children. We've got a great family. My son works in the business. Most people probably wouldn't know that I have a great garden. I love to garden in my spare time. Seeing things grow just fascinates me. And I guess that I study, you read The Art of a Deal. I love history books. I love reading what Alexander Hamilton did. I'm reading his 550-page book now. It fascinates me, people who got involved in the political system and really just to make things better. Yeah. And so I read a lot. I enjoy it. And I spend a lot of time on constituent service. When people call and when they're trying to navigate the maze of regulations, I get involved with it. Had a lady that I was meeting with, and I could just tell she was down. I said, "What's wrong?" She had DHEC had fined her $10,000 for water runoff that they said came from her mobile home, and she was going to sell a mobile home. I said, "Well, Sandy, wait a minute. Let's find the facts out." We went to Columbia, appealed it, went to the board. It wasn't even from her house. So I take a lot of pride in things like that.
Right.
You can help people, and that's what we're here for. That's my job.
Right, and that's great. You speaking of 15 grandchildren, what would your message be to young voters?
Go to work.
Yeah.
Go to work. I think a lot of people, and I was worked. We all had to go to. It wasn't an option with us. We had to work. I mean, we had to work. And the best thing I can tell people is get something that they love, and go to and do it. Find out what their passion is, and if it's your passion, you'll never go to work a day in your life.
Yeah.
I had a recruiter that I used to show. He recruited for all the major industries in York County, and he'd come in right around. I'd show him the neighborhoods, and he would try to peg a neighborhood for that particular executive. So how do you know? How do you pinpoint what he likes? He said, "Ralph, I make a lot of money, and I've got the easiest job in the world. The one question I ask of anybody is, what do you read in your spare time? You tell me what somebody reads in their spare time, I'll tell you what their interest is and what their talent will be." So I would give, the advice I would give is find your passion, whatever that is, and do it. Particularly young people who aren't tied down. They can do it. They've got the time, and why not? You only go around once.
Right. And just a quick follow-up question to that. Leslie and I know firsthand that being conservatives on a college campus isn't the easiest thing to do. So what would your message be to college conservatives?
Don't be afraid to step out, and everything starts with a conversation. And as both of you have seen, liberals get the maddest and most upset when you ask them why. How do you explain you feel you voted for Hillary? Give me some reasons. Why not? And I'll tell you my reasons. And a lot of them won't ask that question, but conservatives need to stand up, and they need to ask questions, and they need to question things. Because in the business world, we get questioned every day. In the political arena, a lot of people don't. But they need to be questioned. Why did you vote a particular way?
Right.
But on the college campus, now that when opinions are being formed and you're studying and you're finding what you want to do in life, test some theories out with people who don't have your view and see if it makes sense.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much. Thank you for
so
coming
much,
out
Mr.
and
Norman.
talking to us today. It was a really
my honor.
good interview. And I hope you have a great time this year in Columbia.